Hey there, subs and visitors. Today I'm going to present my own discoveries that I've found relating to the shrine in Melbourne. I have watched some of Dale and Nikki's presentations. I think there's about 7 of them, and I'm watching them, and as I'm watching them, things are popping into my head, and I'm having to pause, and I'm putting notes together, and before I know it, I'm head deep in this stuff. So what I have today to show is relating to a whole bunch of things I found. So I'm going to start off with the title as A Building with a Soul. And this is literally a title I found in the website for the Shrine of Remembrance. I think it might be .com or whatever, but anyway. So it says in there, a building with a soul, linking interior and exterior. Okay, and I did find like a drawing diagram with some measurements on it. It's probably the best one I've found so far. But it just from the aerial, like from the flat view of it, looks so much like a microchip. It's crazy, but a lot of buildings look like that, but it's crazy. So at each corner of the shrine, buttresses support large statues sculpted by Paul Montford and are titled Patriotism, Justice, Peace and Goodwill and Sacrifice. And as soon as I saw these statues, I was blown away. And it really does come down to goddesses, and in particular the goddess Inanna, who is an ancient Sumerian goddess of love, the moon, fertility, abundance, self-realization and feminine power. She's often shown as a beautiful, strong-winged, feminine warrior woman, flanked by 2 lions to symbolize courage and protection. And Inanna is the ancient Sumerian goddess of love, sensuality, fertility, procreation, and also of war. Another goddess of strikingly similar nature is Cybele. She's Phrygia's only known goddess and was probably its national deity. Greek colonists in Asia Minor adopted and adapted her Phrygian cult and spread it to mainland Greece and to the more distant Western Greek colonies around the 6th century BC. She was also a popular goddess in the Roman Empire, and she's often depicted seated on a throne flanked by lions, or that throne is placed on a chariot pulled by lions. And as you can see in this image of this statue, there's a young child there, standing between the 2 lions in front of this female goddess. And I believe that is Attis. There's also another image that I could find online where it shows this goddess holding a baby, which I do believe is the same child. I wasn't able to find pictures of the other 2 online, so I'd like to know what they look like, what is actually going on in those 2. I'd love to go to the shrine myself. Might drive there one day. Now, Attis came about through Nana, which sounds like Inanna. And, as I was saying in my last video, it's just the same story over and over. So this creation story goes as follows. Nana is the daughter of the river Sangarius, and Nana ate the fruit of an almond tree. And as a result of her snack, Nana delivered a boy child 9 months later. Pausanias was told that Daemon, Agdistus, initially bore both male and female sexual organs, and the Olympian gods feared Agdistus, and they conspired to cause this god to accidentally castrate themselves, ridding themselves of their male organs. And due to having done this, a hemorrhage occurred, and of that hemorrhage germinated an almond tree. And when the fruits ripened, that's when Nana, the daughter of the river Sangaris, took an almond and later became pregnant. Later, Nana abandoned baby Attis. The infant was tended by a he-goat, and as Attis grew, his long-haired beauty was godlike, and then Cybele then fell in love with him. But Attis's foster parents sent him to where he was to wed the king's daughter. And the king is Midas. Anyhow, so just as the marriage song was being sung, Cybele appeared in her transcendent power, and Attis went mad and castrated himself under a pine. And when he died as a result of his self-inflicted wounds, violets grew from his blood. And at the shrine in Melbourne, there's an ex-service women's memorial garden which boasts 350 concrete violets embedded in the grass. There's definitely a creation link to the shrine, as Attis was born on December 25th of the Virgin Nana. He was considered the saviour who was slain for the salvation of mankind. His body, as bread, was eaten by his worshippers. He was both the divine Son and the Father. On Black Friday, he was crucified on a tree from which his holy blood ran down to redeem the earth. He descended into the underworld, and after 3 days, Attis was resurrected. Now, there's plenty of different variations of this myth, depending on which culture you're looking at, whether it be Roman, Greek, etc. And so, but it definitely, finding these 350 violets cemented into the grass was quite telling. So yeah, like there's this goddess figure who's riding in a chariot, flanked by 2 lions, and there's the child, the baby, and then there's the violets in the garden, and I don't see all of that as a coincidence. To me, it's pretty obvious there's a theme going on there. So the next thing I looked into were the dates. And so November 11th, 1918, the armistice was signed between the Axis and Allies, ending the First World War. So the war ending on 11/11/1918. And exactly 9 years, or 108 months later, the foundation stone was laid on 11th of November 1927. So that's exactly 108 months. And the shrine was officially dedicated on the 11th of November in 1934. So here we have an exact 7-year period to the day in between the laying of the foundation stone and the official opening date. So I was interested to see what may have happened on 11/11/2018, because that's the armistice centenary, which marks the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended the First World War. And the city of Melbourne paid homage to the occasion by illuminating many of its memorials in the hue of red. And here's the shrine lit up red. I mean, what a lovely colour to choose. Anyhow, so the midpoint would be 2021, okay, for this year. So 2018, 2021, 2024. So in 2021, the protesters gathered at the shrine on September 22 in Melbourne, and Australian protests started on Monday over new COVID-19 vaccine requirements for construction workers, but turned into larger and at times violent demonstrations against lockdown restrictions in general. And I'm sure plenty of people around the world saw what happened there that day, and it was pretty full on. There was a full standoff between protesters and police. And there was also a 5.9 magnitude quake in Melbourne on the same day as the protests. And it's apparently the first earthquake since 1902 in Victoria, and now the strongest earthquake that's ever happened in Victoria. But considering the level of human emotion that very day on such a sacred area in Australia, I'm not so surprised that an earthquake was generated that day. In fact, it was serious enough that apparently there was the discovery of a previously unknown fault line in the area. So yeah. And so if you add another 3 years to 2021, that brings us to this year. And I know that Nikki and Dale have mentioned the protests on the at the shrine that day, and I think they're dead on about that being a significant event. And a few months ago, I made a video where I spoke about a 28-year period from 2012 to 2040, relating to the 2012 Olympics opening ceremony and the 28 days later movie franchise, both directed by Danny Boyle. You could check that out if you are interested. So the reason for having mentioned that is that 1934 plus 28 years brings us to 1962, which is an isometric epicenter date given to us by Jason of Archaics. Okay, so that year, Australian Defence personnel served in Vietnam over 10 years. Okay, in our initial commitment of 30 military advisors in 1962 grew to include a battalion in 1965 and a task force in 1966. And Australia's last combat troops came home in March of 1972. And 28 years after that event, in 1962, brings us to 1990, which was the Gulf War, and the extinguishing of the eternal flame at the shrine. So the shrine and its surrounds are preserved under the Shrine of Remembrance Act, making it an offence to contravene regulations which include the flame's preservation. Wind and rain have been known to extinguish the flame in the early 1990s during the Anzac Day service. And then if we were to jump forward another 28 years, that brings us to 2018, which again flipped over 2021 brings us to 2024. And if we were to add another 28 years onto 2018, that brings us out to 2046. And 2024 also reflects 1972 over the 1998 isometric epicenter date given to us by Archaics. So right in the middle there is 1998, and this brings us to these two casts, these two sculptures entitled Wipers and the Driver by British sculptor Charles Sargent Jagger, purchased by the Felton Bequest in 1937 and originally displayed on Swanson Street in front of the State Library. They were both transferred to the shrine grounds. So men were transferred back home to Australia from Vietnam, and a pair of sculptures were transferred to the shrine. And another interesting thing to add relating to this year is that it's exactly 90 years, or 1080 months, since the opening of the shrine on 11/11, 1934 to 11/11, 2024. It's 1080 months, which is exactly the same amount of time that Jason gives us for the completion of the Great Pyramid. So there's another 108 reference there, as there was in the beginning. And in 1954, the World War II forecourt was dedicated on the 28th of February by Queen Elizabeth, who also lit the eternal flame. The flame, symbolising eternal life, was lit by Her Majesty during the dedication, and the Remembrance Garden was opened by Premier John Cain on the 11th of November 1985. Now, from 1954, if we add 35 years, that brings us to 1989, which is the Shrine of Remembrance regulations of 1989. And those regulations came into operation on November 1st, 1989. These regulations are made under the powers in Section 6 of the Shrine of Remembrance Act 1978, which upon my reading through the Chair and Chief's Executive Officer's report, I found this paragraph, and it says, "Responding to development on our boundaries and the ambitions of our neighbours, we have determined the desirability and utility of a master plan for the shrine and shrine reserve. To this end, we have initiated a master planning process to guide us into the care, management and development of the shrine from 2025 to 2045. So they have plans for a further 20 years down the pipe. The initial planning began with the laying of the foundation stone on November 11 in 1927, and they're still planning to go another 20 years to 2045, which immediately brought my attention to the 2045 Avatar project milestones. Okay, and I was I was imagining some crazy stuff, which is pretty normal for me. Like, what if the general plan relating to the 2045 initiative is to be able to leave the underground and return to the surface via a robotic copy of a human being? I mean, 2046 is a year later, and I don't think it's going to be all that good on the surface. So, what safer way than to have, you know, put out these robots from the underground, some kind of synthetic type thing, and you can wander around on the surface and suss everything out, see what's happening. Anyway, 1989 plus another 35 years brings us to the next stage of the 20-year planning, which is beginning in the new financial year this year, 2024. Yeah, so I definitely see a death and rebirth theme here relating to the shrine, and it's linked to this year, 2040 and 2046. It's absolutely steeped in ancient mythology and occult symbolism, and I really don't think that it's got anything to do with Monash's words that are inscribed on the west wall, which spell out the meaning and issue in a stern injunction. And it states, "Let all men know that this is holy ground. This shrine, established in the hearts of men, as on the solid earth, commemorates a people's fortitude and sacrifice. Ye, therefore, that come after, give remembrance." I mean, who is he talking about? He mentions it being holy ground and that the shrine is established in the hearts of men and a people's fortitude and sacrifice, but that could be alluding to anyone. So there's no mention of servicemen, although I haven't walked inside the place. I know there's a lot of war memorial stuff there, but there's, definitely deep occult connections there. I mean, even as I said, as I started this video with the article that states a building with a soul. It's pretty crazy. But anyway, I'm going to end this here. But before I go, I'd also like to give a shout out to Saturn Rooster 81. If you haven't seen the work he's doing and you're interested in this kind of stuff, you'll probably find his work very interesting. He's like fractal tracking the realm, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. So yeah, check it out. But anyway, I hope you all have a good day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and I hope to catch you on the next one.